Season 5, Episode 6, Doctor, Give Me a Call. Alan chimes, reflecting on Anna Lining's work in an Australian occupational medical practice. Anna Lining asks, how are different organisations managing the phenomena of digital and instant communication modes in their business? Teams, social media, intranets and the like. The team debate the Fair Work Amendment Bill 2023 on the right to disconnect because of the issue raised by Anna. That is, the communication impact on mental and emotional load. Trajce advises, you must go straight to the source. Don't go to Dr. Gurgle. The devil is in the detail. Enjoy.
Educate your mind, cause the system will keep you blind. Educate your mind, cause the system will keep you blind. Educate your mind, cause the system will keep you blind. Create a new path, don't let the people follow your signs. Educate your mind.
Hello, and welcome to the Why Work podcast, a series of playful legal dissections on the most curious and alarming events in the world of work. The podcasters Alan Girl, Trajce and Sara debate how to craft a better experience of work. Sit back, relax and enjoy. And remember, none of the things we talk about today should be construed as legal advice or any other type of advice. We're just here to talk about all things related to work.
Trajce, we've got a query from Anna Lining, and
Anna Lining, she is a fabulous operator. I know her very well.
Lining.
Extremely good at her job.
Oh, good plug. She's
shout out to Anna.
Marketing manager at Lyme Medical Legal and Phoenix Occupational Medicine. Right?
We should offer her a job. Sorry, Sid.
And I heard she's actually an occupational therapist. I think she wrote to me that that's one of her initial degrees.
Yeah, but
cool.
I haven't seen her. I don't have first-hand experience of her practicing that. I only have first-hand experience of her and her marketing skills, which are mind-blowingly good.
If she's an OT, then she'll have a really good understanding of person, environment, occupation, and performance. And that's that system design, that's perfect marriage with human factors, socio-technical systems, work design, you name it. So, hey, Anna.
You're talking about OTs?
I'm talking about human factors, but it's a good link.
Yeah.
And
cool.
Anna. Right. Yeah. Back to Anna. All about Anna.
All right. This is all about Anna. This is going out to you, Anna.
Anna's asked, here's a question I'd love to hear more about. How are different organizations managing the use of Teams, instant messaging apps, and the like? What's the impact on the worker's mental load? It's something I'm hearing a lot of conversation around and not a lot of answers. Now, we've mentioned this because, of course, there's a new legislation, this Right to Disconnect Fair Work Amendment, Right to Disconnect Bill 2023.
R2D2. Right to disconnect.
Take us away. Give us a bit of an intro into what this new right is.
And I think there's got to be a song. Please, can you find a song in that mental library of yours?
Yeah, that's it. I just thought of Star Wars then, the right to disconnect R2D2, who's C-3PO in all this. It's funny because can you read out the full title of that legislation?
Sure.
Amendment. It's not legislation. It's just an amendment to the Fair Work Act.
Yeah, it's from the Parliament of the Commonwealth of Australia, House of Representatives.
Yeah, don't go that far. Just straight to the section.
So Anna works in a medical legal business. Yeah. So I think the appropriate song, you can tell me the song, but has the lyrics, Doctor, Give Me a Call.
Oh, Doctor, give me the news. I've got a bad case. Loving you.
Yeah.
It's Fair Work Amendment, Right to Disconnect Bill 2023, and it's a bill for an act to amend the Fair Work Act of 2009.
But what's it say? What's the section itself? What's it?
Oh, come on.
Where is it?
Come on.
I'll tell you what it is.
Recite it.
It's taking what already existed and it's creating it in a legislative form. And that is, if you're not employed to work outside normal business hours, then you have a right, within reason, to refuse to take calls or communications from your employer.
And that was what I was looking for. It's not right to disconnect, as I mentioned in our Why Work, in the drop-in session. Outside, we're forgetting one of the most vital ingredients in this provision, outside, and this goes straight back to Anna's question, using Teams. When is outside?
So you've got to look at the nature of the employment.
That's right.
Because for many jobs, it would be part of your employment to take a call or a message, an email or whatever to indicate what roster you're on.
That's right.
But that doesn't mean your employer can ring you up and
have a
talk
Teams
at you for an hour.
Yeah.
Or worse, yes, call you on Teams.
That's what I'm saying.
When maybe you're in your pyjamas or you've had a
Correct.
couple of drinks and, you know, you don't want to be on Teams talking to your boss.
Suddenly 9 p.m. So when does 3 a.m. suddenly become 3 p.m.? When does 9 a.m.? So it's these blurred lines. There's your song. Blurred lines.
Oh, you bring that back a lot. I
We
think you
love
just
that
like
song.
the girls
Blurred
dancing in the
lines.
background.
No, I remember that song. There was legal action around that song with respect to copyright issues, but that's a separate matter.
Yep.
Blurred lines, and that's Anna's point. Teams creates blurred lines.
And the empathy map goes all ways, because we've also talked about the expectations on managers to be responsive to their team members, or on service providers like healthcare workers and teachers to be responsive to their customers, right?
I haven't looked at the legislation to see whether or not an employer can refuse calls from their workers under the right to disconnect, or whether it's just a one-way legislation.
That's why I always say to everyone, go straight to the source. Don't go to Google.
Anna's saying Teams. She's referring to Teams and other software
Instant
packages.
message, essentially the instant nature of the communication models. And we spoke about this in our webinar drop-in session, WhatsApp, right? Just the other day. So we were talking about all the different ways that you can communicate, and even going back to our episode on emojis, right? A little quick contact from an emoji. How's it supposed to be interpreted? How do you get that validated? Dylan Matthews from Future Fit Academy, where Trajce wants to become Future Fit, wrote that
He's already fit.
He's
Getting fitter.
Dylan asked about whether using company-approved communication now is something that they should look at. Do they stop using GIFs? But we already said no. Hieroglyphics is a part of communication. Teams, text messages, all these instant messages are a legitimate form of communication.
I think in most businesses there must be about 10 different types of communication.
Exactly, right? And there are avatars you use, there's GIFs that you use, there are
But
emojis.
Even if you just go to the software, so put aside letters and voice, you've got emails, you've got phone, you've got text, you've got all the different software packages like LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Microsoft Teams, Skype. There are just so many different ways, and many employers now have their own infra system where they've got their own boutique little type of communication within the office.
Absolutely, that's right.
Okay, so that's
intranets. They call it intranet. Yeah.
Intranet.
So a little bit of research hygiene for all those people who are out there who are keen to look for information. When considering what is this law and what is the purpose of this law, we would always recommend go to the explanatory memoranda, and it's what I tell my students to do. And here we will answer all of those questions that have been raised by Anna, and indeed you, Alan. 64A is the proposed amendment. Right to disconnect outside of work hours. So section 64A of the Fair Work Act of 2009. Right to disconnect outside of work hours. The effect of the new clause is to include the right to disconnect in the National Employment Standards. The new clause states that an employer must not contact an employee outside
Bingo. It's
employer's
one-way
hours.
legislation. What about the rights of the supervisors and managers to disconnect?
That's right. So at this stage...
And wait. It's saying must not contact their employee.
Yeah.
Wait.
Contact.
Or...
C word.
Or... Another C word.
Contact. That's a good song. Contact.
Or is it just that the employee has the right not to respond?
No, the new clause states that an employer must not contact an employee outside of... Must. The devil's in the detail.
I take issue with that.
Must. Not may, not might, not perhaps. Must. So...
And again, we talked about this during the webinar, that there are all kinds of patterns of working now, and the distribution of work is more than geographical. It is a displacement of time and space. And how you work, you sent me this article, Trajce, about work related to your circadian rhythms. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And now prescribing...
No, I don't. Because I know I'm on must, but I'm having that Seinfeld moment, with the Kramer and the lawyer with the coffee, and you didn't let me finish after must. Unless. Always wait for the unless. You just said, so it's one way. Alan said one way. No. Unless the reason. You ready?
Yeah.
You can contact your employee. Before we get to circadian rhythms...
No, you're missing the point. You're missing the point.
No.
The point is some managers feel stressed because they need to always be responsive to their staff.
Yeah, well, no, we'll get back to the... Let's just stick to the one way with the employee enjoying his or her beer in his or her pyjamas at 8 p.m, early to bed, Pilates early the next day, so they've got their agenda all lined up, dinner's done, rituals all happening, unless the reason for the contact is an emergency. We'll unpack what emergency... I know what emergency means when I teach my students. I'm not sure it would fall into this definition of emergency. An emergency or, always wait for the or, for those who haven't watched that Kramer episode, or genuine welfare matter.
Well, you've just raised a really interesting point.
Or, always wait for the or the employee is in receipt of an availability allowance. Now, that's a different story, which we didn't discuss the other day, availability allowance, if you paid for this.
We did mention that a little bit about saying that I'm on call.
We did.
So emergency...
So sorry, I think you need to retract that.
Oh, I'll retract that. Emergency, genuine welfare
This
matters.
provision will not protect university lecturers from being pestered by university students.
Or colleagues running podcasts.
Yeah. 4 a.m. is what I average. 4:30 messages to you guys. 4:30.
Look,
4:30.
I didn't set a clock by you. It's 5 a.m. every time.
So
I think I'm up thinking about it at 4 to 4:30, and I try to hold back. So then by the time it actually presses send, it's 5.
Really, this convoluted, almost sort of haphazard but humorous answer to Anna's question is this: the key word is teams. If your employer is... So the question was specifically around teams.
No. Rewind it back again. Retract that as well. It was about multiple communication methods, and Teams was just an example. And instant messaging, etcetera. So the listen. Remember the words. Wait. The words are important. The etcetera is important.
Etcetera. That's a little bit. That's a bit. How long's a piece of string?
We were brothers, sisters, siblings in a last life.
Etcetera is how long's a piece of string. But for me, that stuck out was Teams. When was the last time you had a quick Teams?
No. Do you understand? Teams also has this instant messaging.
Yeah. What I'm saying is,
it's not a webinar.
You're focusing on the visual.
I'm focusing on the meeting.
Teams
has visual as well.
Yeah, but Teams is just is a software where you can do quick posts and messages.
That's right.
It doesn't have to be a webinar.
But what I'm saying is, if you use the tool for quick messaging, you would put that in one basket. But if you use the same tool, the Teams, for let's have a meeting at 8 p.m. That's where I think this legislation is trying to sort of short-circuit that.
It's just saying contact. So to me, that's instant messaging, that's Teams, that's emails, and I think that's ridiculous.
Is there a definition of contact in that legislation?
We'll have to find out. I don't think so. No.
Because is it contact if the person... This might be where Anna's question's coming from. Is it contact if the person doesn't read it? Or is it contact only if the person receives the message?
Well, that's what I was getting at, is does the person have to respond? It actually said the one-way directional, unidirectional of the employer making contact. And I'm thinking, okay, what? Right? Come on.
Maybe these... You know how on email you can delay your message?
Yeah, but you're going to have to do that on every medium then.
Yeah, correct.
Every medium. And you can't delay text, you lose it. If you answer another text and your text hasn't sent, you lose it.
Yes, contact is definitely pivotal, but it's this allowance. So I think one way employers might get around all of this is simply give
pay
people...
Pay
an allowance. I know...
Oh, so every employee is supposed to be 24-hour on call then? Come on.
It's possible that this is one way they're going to explore it. I mean,
so how much of an allowance? Could you say a penny? Here you go.
$20, $10,
so
who knows?
Everyone's hungry for a bit more money at the moment.
So $20 will do?
Well,
seriously,
what you're going to do is you're going to reflect on how many times does my boss contact me? And if the answer to that question is, very rarely, And yeah, I'll take 20 bucks a day.
You're on call. Like I know people, for example, who are, so they've got their work hours allocated, so it's a classic 9 to 5 job. They go, however, built into their contract is this allowance. It's crumbs because these people are on really high paid salaries. However, given the nature of the work, and it's serious work, if someone's in breach of something, if they're rostered for that particular call, it's an emergency call. So if they're rostered for that emergency call for that weekend, so it's got to be reasonable. It's not 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I think it's once a fortnight. For that weekend, they get paid $20. So it's not the money.
Wait, they get paid per episode of contact?
Yeah, per episode of contact.
Again, I'm finding major problems with this amendment. Major problems.
This is good. We've brought some.
Thank you, Anna. I think you're right.
How the heck did this get through?
I think it might end up having the reverse effect.
How the heck? Well, you know what? If I were an employer of some magnitude, I would just say, okay, well, I can't afford raises because I'm just going to be giving everybody this little bonuses. So far we're holding raises this year, so I can just comply with this damn law that makes no sense because we are a company who's agile, swift. We maneuver. We've accommodated employees' requests to have variable work hours and a displacement of their work. So therefore, I'm accommodating that. I'm not upset if they don't respond to me. I just need to get it out of my brain cells onto a communication pad, right?
So this is the thing.
But this is what this law amendment is saying. The way you've just read it to me, if I'm not mistaken, it's saying I can't even make that contact. How ridiculous.
Well, the thing is, that's the first premise. You cannot make that contact, but it's not so much about the right to disconnect. When you drill down into it, you've got to break down, what does the word contact mean? What does this mean then about increasing allowances or suddenly varying terms of contracts where allowances are included?
I just gave you the example of a university lecturer and a student. Maybe it shouldn't be employer-employee. Maybe it should be more broader than that.
Well, interesting you say that.
And then who's going to set that boundary? Are we going back to that very white male colonized kind of privileged position to say, work is only 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Thank you very much. And we're forgetting about
Sounds pretty good to me. I'd love to go back to that.
9 to 5.
I remember those days with great warmth. So that was a nice time.
Yeah, so
when you clocked off at 5 o'clock and that was it.
It's interesting that you made the uni student connection because part of the submissions which we talked about in the previous episode for this is both the police service and the unions representing teachers, the two key drivers for this amendment. So the two key lobbies, because as part of any provision, you do consultation with your constituents. The two submissions came from police officers, and Greg gave some wonderful examples about that in our drop-in work session. But also the teachers, and of course Dylan was very happy to share
his partners, the teacher,
that need for
parents
contacting you. So those two submissions from the police and education was about that. Apparently, there's technology to say, you didn't respond to my email, but I emailed you on Friday.
But this isn't protecting the teacher from parents' contacts.
That's right. That's what Alan's saying.
All right. So let's wind this back.
Yes, it is vicariously. Let's bring in that old chestnut. Your employer has a duty of care, I would say, to ensure that you are disconnecting.
Well, you could do that through the hardware. You could give your employees a mobile phone that locks off.
Correct. That's a response.
Okay,
That's a good example.
I was just going to say, let's wind this back to Anna's query and say, if we have to manage this, because I don't want to curtail where my thoughts come and my innovation comes at any given time as a manager. So here, Trajce, you work for me this week. You get this phone for work. Yeah. You have your personal phone. You're not in trouble. Turn it off after your work hours, and if you've listened to it, not my fault, right? I've given you the parameters, the time for the phone. Use your other phone at other times. Go ahead and turn it off and turn off your laptop. And it would have to be about device management then. And because the whole other thing on devices, because a lot of employees use their own devices, but I can only do my best that I can do.
I think Anna's raised a really good point, and it's probably true for lots of other businesses as well, which is you've got to take the time to stop and think about what's actually happening. We're being contacted outside work hours, and we really need to think about what that means for us as individuals and how we're going to compensate for it or stop it.
But then are you suggesting just an individual behavioural management plan, right?
I'm a big believer in work groups. Luckily for her business is not a huge business, so they could sit down as a team and have that discussion and talk about, what are the possible solutions.
Yeah, I think it's more like employers, so without fear or further, can safely put, you have contacted me outside of work hours. I will respond to you at my next work availability, which will be Monday at 8 a.m. I think it's designed to allow people without feeling scared or guilty that they can put that stop sign up.
And remember, we spoke about the invisible, not easy to extract, to count, but the times where, Trajce, you might have that boundary set with me as your manager, and Alan, on the other hand, is always available. Yeah. Come raise time, come, I'm giving promotions.
Oh, please, I'm always available.
He's always listening. He's always,
and then Alan might get that promotion, but you couldn't have tracked it. I wouldn't explicitly say it's just because you're available, right? But subconsciously, it's a human relationship. And I think that is a real concern, right?
Yes.
I think
Alan's a suck up. Remember the Gremlin? The Grinch? Nobody loves a suck up.
You don't have to use the expression stop sign because what you're doing is you're saying, look, we respect that your query, whatever it is or whatever you want to tell us, is important, and we will address it when we're back in work hours. So we're not ignoring you. We're listening to you, but we're going to respond when we get back into work hours.
But remember, the word Parliament's using is disconnect, and disconnect is analogous to stop. No, it's a stop sign.
Well,
it's
once
saying
again, it's a negatively cast legislation.
It's saying stop in the name of
love. And it isn't talking about organisations that otherwise provide eudaimonia.
Yeah. You're going to love that word.
But so to Genesis and eudaimonia, man.
Now that she's dropped that bomb, have you got the case to tell us about?
I do have a bomb case. But so to wrap that up for Anna, this is only a few words in this provision, but it's vexed. I've used that word 3 times today. We're going to have to break down what does contact mean? What does is the allowance reasonable? Is this an emergency? We're concerned about your welfare, or these are going to be for a little gem. This thing's going to be giving a lot of
mileage here.
A lot of mileage.
We're going to see how it gets tested in law.
Yeah.
Educate your mind, 'cause the system will keep you blind. Educate your mind, 'cause the system will keep you blind. Educate your mind, 'cause the system will keep you blind. Create a new path, don't let the people follow your signs. Educate your mind, 'cause the system will keep you blind. Educate your mind, 'cause the system will keep you blind. Educate your mind, 'cause the system will keep you blind. Create a new path, don't let the people follow your signs. In my lifetime, I followed the wrong.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Why Work. You've been listening to Trajce, Sara and Alan. And if you'd like to know more about some of the things we've talked about today, please subscribe, and we'd be more than happy to provide you with information, names of cases, and other things that may interest you. Please be aware that none of the matters we've talked about today should be construed as legal advice or any other type of advice. We're just here to talk about all things related to work. See you next time.
Baker, all my life, an authority hater. Educate your mind, 'cause the system will keep you blind. Educate your mind, 'cause the system will keep you blind. Educate your mind.